Hello, friends. Today I'm going to be talking about life, death, and rebirth as part of the 12 Days of Yule. Keep in mind that there will be moments where this is a more heavy video because we are dealing with not just beliefs about life and death, but also my own personal experiences. And some of them are heavy, but they shaped how I reached this point and how I came to this type of belief. So, with that said, let's get started. To understand my beliefs regarding life, death, and rebirth, there's a little bit of background information that's necessary. First, I was born and raised in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as Mormons. And so there is a very strong belief of the eternal progression of a soul, of a spirit, and that there is a distinction between body, mind, and spirit, and that all three of them are similar but different things. Your body is your corporeal form that you can touch. Your spirit is like your physical body in that it houses your intelligence or your mind. And when the three are working together in a balanced way, you are alive. As they become less in balance, you become ill. And when the spirit or the mind leaves the body, then you die. There's also the belief of resurrection and of eternal progression. So with that being my childhood upbringing, I had a very strong belief of death is not the end. And that has served me very well throughout my life because there were opportunities to be very afraid of things. My grandfather on my dad's side died when I was in 5th grade. No, I was in 4th grade. So over 20 years ago now. And I remember people just fell apart. People who didn't even know him, people assumed that I should be more upset than I was, even to the point of my elementary school teacher trying to tell me I wasn't grieving and I wasn't doing it right because I didn't go through the 5 stages of grief as she interpreted them. Even though if you want to interpret it that way, I really did. But I did it quietly and I did it quickly because I believe I will see him again. So it's more like passing from one room to the next. And I've been thinking a lot about these things in the last couple of years, even more so this year, because my other 3 grandparents all died in the last 13 months. And my father died only at time of recording this about a month and a half ago. My mother died about 7 years ago. So in my direct family, my parents are gone, my grandparents are gone, and a lot of different people are expecting me to have stronger or more public grieving than I have. Part of that comes back to my previous beliefs that are beliefs I've previously mentioned, and part of that goes to all of the various things I've studied in the last couple of years. This is not a comprehensive list, just a quick one. I've studied the beliefs of Wicca, Brujeria, Conjure, Appalachian Granny Magic, and a wide variety of Native American shamanism. That all leads me to an even stronger faith in the progression of life. And that that it just doesn't cease when we die, that there is something more. And because of that belief, yes, I grieve, but it's the grief of a temporary separation, not a permanent loss. In addition, throughout all of the various things I've studied, a handful of symbols keep coming back to me over and over again. And one of them is around my neck right now. It's a phoenix, which I think summarizes my beliefs about death very concisely, very neatly. Because while there is some variation in the various myths of phoenixes around the world, a handful of things are consistent. The first of which is that in the moment of death, their body is consumed in fire, they leave behind the ashes of their old life, and are reborn. Some myths have them reborn as an egg that then has to hatch, and then others have them spring forth again fully formed as an adult. I prefer the version where they spring forth fully formed of approximately the same, I guess you would say, physical age as their previous incarnation, because that has been my experience throughout life. This is where I'm going to start talking about things that are a bit more heavy and potentially triggering. So here is a trigger warning for suicide, suicidal ideation, and extreme depression. If you don't want to hear about that, I would click off of the video now, because it's going to be the majority of the last couple of minutes of this. With that said, I had picked a day to die. I'm not going to share the exact date, other than I have survived that date by, 2023, almost 2024, by over 5 years. Almost 6 years. And in a very real way, I did die. Not physically, my heart didn't stop. Thankfully, events conspired in such a way that I didn't even make the attempt, because there was the strangest intervention of events. I was in an abusive relationship where I had reached the point of feeling like it wasn't worth being alive anymore. And it took being encouraged into a series of actions that the me that existed before the abusive relationship would never have agreed to. And being partway through the experience and going, when did I become someone who was okay with this behavior? To go, oh my, I've stopped being myself. I died. Somewhere along the line, the me that I knew to be me had disappeared. And it was in a moment of clarity, in a very weird situation of going, oh, if I've stopped being myself, how do I find myself again? Well, first, get rid of the abusive person. So I, the very next day, went and filed for divorce. And after filing for divorce, which is another very real death, a death of a relationship, particularly being raised in a religious group that believes that marriage is eternal, and that I had somehow failed because mine wasn't eternal. Mine ended. And I had to build myself back up from the ashes. Due to being divorced, I was ostracized by my faith group. I had lost all of my money. I had lost about 95% of my possessions. I was quite literally starting over from scratch at 28 years old. Actually, I was starting over with worse than scratch because I was also about $20,000 in debt at that point. So I was starting out again in negatives. But having my entire life burn down around me, I learned you can rebuild. It's not going to be the same, but you can rebuild. You can leave the ashes behind you, or better yet, you can turn them into cement and build something new, something different. And that's what I did. Death to me is a door. It's a threshold. And I am so very grateful to God, the universe, however you want to define your higher power, for stepping into my life and reminding me I had forgotten who I was. Because now I'm still here. And it's been a wild ride. But I've taken those ashes. The ones that didn't serve me anymore, I just scattered. And those that did serve me, I turned into building materials for the rest of my life. So I know that this kind of wandered a bit, but that's kind of the purpose of these videos for the 12 Days of Yule. They're more conversational, I should say. And hopefully this has been an uplifting experience for you. I know it has been for me to be able to talk through some of these things in the very generic, non-specific way that I have. It is the internet, after all. If you don't have my phone number, I'm not necessarily going to be super specific. But to anyone who is struggling with thoughts of ending things, please remember, most of the problems in our mortal experience are temporary. Walking through the door of death is a permanent solution to a potentially temporary problem. Until next time, walk in the light.